Okay, I'm called to order this meeting of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Board for October 23rd. If there are anybody, there's nobody here from the public, so I won't offer comments. Matters from the floor?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if we could begin by taking roll since one of our members is participating remotely.
that was the next thing on my thing here.
Okay.
Okay. Roll call. Maxwell.
Here.
Olson here. Miller.
Here.
Hedgemati.
Here.
We have 4 members here. We do have a quorum. Approval of the agenda is next, which includes information items 4.1, FEMA repayment summary, and consent items will follow. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Maxwell?
Aye.
Olson, aye. Miller?
Aye.
Hedgemati?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is approval of the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Olson, aye. Miller?
Aye.
Hedgemati?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll get into the regular agenda. In terms of a report, I was able to go with Jane Maxwell to the Metropolitan Watershed meeting this week, and it was a very detailed meeting, lots of presentations. We had a formal presentation from the water manager in Edina, who talked about their low salt, no salt program and the variety of ways you can modify the use of salt to get the most effective protection for the traffic as well as people walking on sidewalks, et cetera. There's also a upcoming January, what we call the Winter Salt Week, being held January 26th to the 30th. And for folks who want to take a look at that, it's online. Clean Water Council was there giving a presentation. Marcy Weinert has been our representative for watersheds on the Clean Water Council for the last 5 years. She is now retiring, and a new candidate has been selected, and it's subject to the Watersheds Board approval. Another thing that they talked about was a summer tour. That is going to change. Now it's on August 26th, and it'll be up in the Red River Valley area, specifically the Detroit Lakes area. Further on, MPCA did a presentation talking about the fact that 4 Twin City lakes that have been on the impaired list have now qualified to be taken off. So good news for the Twin Cities. 4 of them are going to be delisted in 2026. We also had a
Which lakes?
I don't have a list of them. Neither did
Partial report.
Neither did she. The impaired, we had a presentation from Met Council, which was incredible. They generate a lot of heat that they receive from the waste. Wastewater goes in at 57 degrees or higher. If you think about it, everybody's home's 72 degrees inside, so the water in your tanks are at 72 degrees, and then when you flush it, it heads their direction. So they average about 57 degree water intake, and they send it out at about 44 degrees. So there is a heat drop along the way, and that is in their process. They use it, they cover it, and they use it to run their systems. In addition to that, they process 180 million gallons a day, going from a drop of water coming into that drop of water hitting the Mississippi River. So they do an enormous amount of work with their wastewater facility adjacent to the river. The other thing too that was brought up by them is the last note I have on that meeting is data center approvals that are being applied for in the Minnesota area. Data centers, as some of you probably are very aware, need lots of cooling capability, and to the point where these people have patented priority, private, secret ways of cooling their computer systems. They generate a lot of heat, and folks from Met Council traveled to Denmark this past year to watch how those data centers are taking that excess heat and using it to heat homes. So every time a data center goes in, the big concern has historically been, how much water do you need? Are you going to pump more than 10 million gallons a day? What's your volume that you need for cooling? But now the concern is maybe we can recover some of that heat. And maybe if these centers, if they are examined on a one-by-one basis, and it looks like they can support the water demands in that area, what happens when you put 2 or 3 nearby? And so that concern is being ratcheted up right now to make sure that the current regulations are adequate to protect the local environments for water supplies. So heat recovery and available water are a big deal. We have the upcoming meeting event schedules posted on our agenda with Manager Sando representing the board at the Citizen Advisory Committee meeting. All right, next on the agenda are public hearings and presentations, which there are none. And then for permits and variance discussions, we have a presentation tonight about the Minnewaska Parkway buffer exception. Ms. Christensen.
Good evening, Chair Olson and Board of Managers. Tonight, I'll be briefing you on Permit 25-454 for the construction of a new single-family home at 7380 Minnewaska Parkway, an associated exception request. The project triggers the district's wetland protection and floodplain alteration rules. The applicant, Minnewaska LLC, is requesting an exception from the Wetland Protection Rules 24-foot buffer requirement, in addition to an after-the-fact permit. To offset the reduced buffer width, the applicant proposes to increase total buffer area and implement enhancements to improve wetland and buffer function. Staff and the district engineer find the project would maintain wetland and habitat functions equivalent to full compliance and therefore recommend approval of the exception and after-the-fact permit. I'll start off the presentation with the project background, followed by a walkthrough of the district rule analysis and the associated exception request, leaving time for questions or discussion at the end. The applicant is proposing the construction in the city of Chanhassen within the Lake Virginia subwatershed. Zooming in a bit further, you can see that the 4.89 acre parcel is located at 7380 Minnewaska Parkway and situated between Lake Minnewaska to the east and Minnewaska Parkway to the west. The applicant is proposing to demolish and reconstruct one single-family home. The project started in spring of 2025 without a district permit, as the applicant understood city approval to cover all required permits. Then when staff visited the site in July to review the wetland boundary as a member of the technical evaluation panel, we noticed the unpermitted work and initiated the permitting process in close coordination with the applicant. The applicant has been cooperative throughout the process and is present tonight to address any questions. In addition to the house construction, the applicant proposes to relocate the existing gravel driveway, shown in brown, as it currently encroaches onto the neighboring property, fails to meet city setback requirements, and does not meet geotechnical driveway standards. To address that, the applicant proposes to move the existing unsuitable driveway and place a new driveway to the north of the wetland. This new driveway placement provides access to the home, meeting city requirements, but creates the need for the exception request before you tonight. The proposed condition also results in a de minimis amount of wetland fill, approved by the City of Chanhassen, who administers the Wetland Conservation Act, and includes a retaining wall, shown in red, to minimize wetland impacts. While this design provides necessary residential access and meets city regulations, it conflicts with the district's minimum buffer width requirement, which I will discuss later in the presentation. I will now give an overview of the rule analysis for this project. The floodplain alteration rule is applicable with any excavation or fill within the 100-year floodplain of any water body. Due to the removal of the existing gravel driveway, the project proposes to excavate 140 cubic yards below the floodplain elevation from within an area of 3,000 square feet, and plans to place 140 cubic yards of soil within the same area to seed with turf grass. This results in no net change to the floodplain storage. District staff and the engineer have reviewed the applicant's floodplain alteration plan and has found it to be compliant with all rule requirements. The wetland protection rule applies to any new principal residential structure increasing the impervious surface area of the site. The on-site wetland is a managed 2 classification, requiring a 24-foot buffer width, shown here in red. Due to the location of the proposed driveway and retaining wall, the required buffer will not be met. The black shows the non-conforming area of 1,428 square feet. The shortfall in buffer width has prompted the applicant's exception request, in which they are proposing to increase the total buffer area to 10,617 square feet. I will now discuss the applicant's exception request and the district analysis of the request. As mentioned, the existing gravel driveway is unsuitable for use, and therefore the applicant is proposing to move it to the north. A required 12-foot minimum buffer width would eliminate this placement, effectively eliminating access to the residence. The proposed design and associated exception request maintains residential function of the site while increasing buffer protection from the existing unbuffered state. The applicant proposes to enhance the buffer in 2 ways. First, by extending the buffer farther south on the east side and on the west side into areas of the site where the buffer is not required. Second is to provide an enhanced planting plan by planting live plugs of grasses and perennials in the buffer area rather than relying solely on the standard seed mix. The buffer is only required on the areas down gradient of the proposed impervious surface. The required area is shown in the darker brown. However, the applicant proposes to extend the buffer area farther south to encapsulate the entire eastern side of the wetland and proposes to establish a 15-foot buffer along the western side of the wetland. This will result in a 191% increase in buffer area. Additionally, the wetland protection rule requires a planting plan consisting of a native seed mix. The applicant, however, proposes to use the native seed mix as the base, as well as incorporating 150 to 200 live planting plugs of a mix of perennials and grasses. The current condition of the wetland is pictured here. As you can see, the wetland and adjacent lawn area provide limited habitat value due to historic mowing of vegetation, which is dominated by invasive species like reed canary grass and Kentucky bluegrass. The proposed buffer plantings introduce a more diverse native vegetation, vertical structural diversity, and nearly double the total buffer area, enhancing cover, forage, and nesting opportunities for wildlife. These improvements result in habitat outcomes equivalent or greater than full rule compliance. Under existing conditions, runoff from the gravel driveway flows untreated into the wetland. The proposed placement of the driveway reduces the amount of impervious surface draining to the wetland, constituting a net reduction of 21%. This, in combination with the 191% increase in buffer area, provides measurable improvement in infiltration and pollutant reduction compared to both existing and fully compliant conditions. To summarize, this single-family home construction is requesting an exception from Section 5C of the Wetland Protection Rule, requiring a 24-foot buffer. This permit has been found to meet the floodplain alteration rule and all other rule requirements other than the requested exception. Staff and the district engineer have evaluated the exception request and find that the applicant has provided sufficient evidence that the proposed project will achieve water resource outcomes equivalent or greater to the fully compliant scenario. Therefore, staff recommend approval of the permit. Thank you, Chair Olson and Board of Managers, for listening to this briefing and associated exception request for permit 25-454. If anyone has any questions or comments, I'm happy to address them now, and the applicant's representative is also present tonight to answer any questions.
Okay, before we get started with that, do I have a motion?
Move approval of the staff recommendation.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion.
Is the road the same level, or is it elevated? The road elevated, or is it the same level as?
Good question, Manager Maxwell. Are you asking about the existing road?
Well, the existing one, because that goes on to the neighbors, that's setbacks out.
Right. Yeah, so the road, Minnewaska Parkway, is elevated, yes, and it does not drain to the wetland on site. So there's curb and gutter right now that captures that runoff from the road.
It's all class 5 then. The new one is class 5, crushed rock. It's not blacktopped.
The existing one is gravel, correct?
Yeah, the new one's going to be the same.
I believe it will be paved.
Oh, it'll be paved?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Manager Hajmati?
Yes, thank you. What I understand is that there's going to be, native plantings and so on placed there. Who's going to be maintaining that and making sure that it doesn't get, invasive species don't get in and so on? Who's going to be managing that?
Yeah, so they have submitted a planting plan that will be reviewed and maintained by those that submitted it. So I believe they will be contracting that kind of management out in order to ensure that there's no invasive species, that those are removed. And that is part of that submitted and approved planting plan. That is part of the condition of the permit approval.
Okay, all right. So there is a maintenance plan that is being acted on, and someone's going to take care of it.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I only have one comment. It's not really related, kind of related. It might be for James. This is an after-the-fact permit, and is there anything we can do to avoid that kind of situation? Was this something we could have done differently?
Manager Olson, I think that's a good question. I don't think we can prevent after-the-fact permits. I think it's a good, just a situational awareness question of what are we doing to make sure people know that they need to secure a watershed district permit. Not all work on all properties does require a permit. And I think we do a lot. One of the biggest things that we do is we work with member communities who are often first point of contact for landowners securing building permits. Like people our direction. I'm not entirely sure what the missed connection there was with the city because I'm not familiar with the timing. In addition to other broad-based communication, the website, relationships with the land use community, and then just the fact that a lot of the work that happens in the watershed involves consultants too that are very familiar with environmental permitting, and the fact that the watershed, our primary mechanism really is partnership with cities. So I'm not sure the particulars on this one. I don't think that we can avoid the fact permitting altogether. And this is an instance where the city and the applicant have been cooperative. The project won't get closed out with the city, and as I understand, there's certain permitting elements that move forward until this gets resolved. And so
I just want to say that I'm very glad to see your report as a recommendation for approval because This is not a simple application. There's a lot of complexity here. It triggers multiple rules. So to work with the applicant and find a way to make it work is great work on our staff's part too. So appreciate the job you did.
And that's really why it's important to stay connected with the communities, you know, which we're doing a great job of, but, one might slip through now and then, but we're still connected with communities to make sure that they're aware of our rules, that we're aware of their rules and everything else.
All right. Then with no further questions, we'll go for a vote. Manager Maxwell.
There might be somebody who wants to, from the audience. Want to be heard.
Is there anybody who would like to make a comment?
Chair Olson and board members, Commissioner Wooster, I
Okay.
with Anderson. I don't have any additional comments. I think staff did a fantastic job of supporting. I don't have anything.
Thank you. With that, we'll do a vote. Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Olson says aye. Miller.
Aye.
Hijmati.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, our action items. First one is 11.1, Resolution 25-061, award contract to Twin Lakes Pond Maintenance. Mr. McDermott's fees.
Hello, Vice President Olson, Board of Managers. I'm here tonight seeking to award the contract for Twin Lakes Pond Maintenance. Tonight, I will briefly go over, as we've seen this before, I'll just very briefly cover background, kind of touch on the maintenance plan again, go over the bids, and then provide a recommendation. As part of the district's stormwater maintenance program, Twin Lakes Pond in St. Louis Park was planned to be dredged in 2023-2024, along with Nokomis Amelia Pond, but due to weather constraints and some unforeseen permitting hurdles at Amelia, the work was ultimately unable to be done. And here in 2025, we have separated the plans for Twin Lakes Pond from Amelia, with the board approving those plans and approving bid solicitation back in November or in September. Maintenance plans are pretty straightforward. The plan is to over excavate the pond by about 2 feet, leading to a total removal of about 3,900 cubic yards of sediment. That sediment is contaminated and will need to be landfilled. A pre-bid meeting was held on October 6th. We had a good turnout. 10 firms attended the pre-bid meeting. Of those 10 firms, 8 submitted bids. The engineer provided an opinion of probable cost at $368,885. Bids came in favorable to the OPC, with the apparent low bid from Fratellone Companies at $254,580. So significantly, a lot lower than OPC. The Fratellone bid was reviewed by Stantec and staff and found to be responsive and responsible. Next steps, if approved tonight, a notice of award will be sent to Fratellones. From there, we will work through finalizing all the contract requirements. Once those are in order, we will coordinate a pre-construction meeting, likely November or December. And then following that in December, the construction window would open, though the actual work would be dependent on weather conditions and likely anticipated in the new year. With this, staff recommends approval of Resolution 25061 to award the contract for Twin Lakes Park Pond Maintenance. I'm going to open up for any questions.
All right. We have a motion for approval.
Second.
We have a second.
Have we worked with this suggested contractor before?
It's my understanding that we have not worked with Fratellone Companies before. Looking into their website a little bit, they have been around for quite a long time, establishing in, I believe, the 70s, and primarily demolition and earth moving company.
Do we, because of our recent problems, do we check with any former clients of, or do we rely on the engineer to do that, or what? How do we do that? Make sure we get somebody that has the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question, Manager Miller. I'll look to Nick Wires. Generally, we are relying on the engineer's help because they're under contract to put together the bid set and then do a bid assistance. So they're preparing the bid tab, assessing for responsive bidder. And typically, if we've got bids that are really close or they don't align very well, there's not a narrow band, or they seem completely misaligned with the estimate of probable costs. There's reasons like that where we will definitely go out and contact references. I'm not sure in this instance, Nick, what Stantec's standard process is and how much background you've gotten into. Like James said, Fratallone Company's been around a long time. They're a well-known, reputable
I see their trucks and stuff.
earthwork company. They've just never bid on our work before. But Nick, I think the question really is what's your standard process in one like this where we've got 8 different bids, they're all quite responsive, tightly banded. Are you doing reference checks to see who Fratallone's worked with and how great of a process that was or wasn't?
Yeah, Manager Miller, Board of Managers. We didn't do any reference checks with them on a site before. I've seen them do quite a bit of earth moving. They did on projects within Stantec in projects similar to this. So we have seen them in the and they've done competent work in a bid with bids like this, a lot of it comes down to the specifications to the standards that are set.
Great, thank you.
Question.
Manager Hmati.
Yes, to the engineer, to this district engineer, how do you, again, like Dick Miller said, we've had trouble with people in the past. So how do you make sure that these folks are adhering to the standards that we have set or that we require?
Good question, Manager Hmati. Most of it is through our on-site inspection. So we have planned for Stantec to be on site during construction, where we'll be monitoring contractor daily to make sure that they're meeting those standards. We take notes, we take photos, we're contacting senior construction managers when there's difficult problems that arise, but it's through that on-site.
Nick,
Okay.
maybe to just help, since we've got 2 managers asking similar or variations on a theme here. For a pond dredging project like this, what's the construction observation frequency? What are the key milestones that you're looking for, your team's looking for? And then what are the specifications? We've had issues with structures that have been constructed in the past by contractors, many different points of connection. On dredging project, what is it that you're looking for? What are the specs, and how frequently are you site observing?
Yeah, Board of Managers, I'd have to check on how often I planned, but we're typically on site 2 to 5 times a week, just depending on the contractor's schedule. The major things we're looking for, the major key moments are pre-construction, start of dewatering, kind of end of dewatering, depending on how their processes are working. We want to see the start of the muck excavation, and in this case, there's very specific haul routes. So maintaining the being aware of where they're bringing the material, seeing the bottom of the dredging, and we'll have GPS equipment to verify those elevations. So in a case where, in this case, we're tracking quantities based on measured quantities, so we'll be surveying it at the base to confirm those elevations hauling off, so they can claim that they're hauling off more than they are. After that, the big thing is going to be restoration. So making sure we're on site for the final grading, to do a site walkthrough before they start putting seed and blanket down. And then doing, in this case, it's a walkthrough in the spring as well, to make sure that there isn't damage to adjacent trails and curb and other site features that we've called out at this time to be. The specifications within the contract, there's completion date windows that are required, so they're required to have it done with the pond dredging by the end of March. There's notes on plans that call out that there's protection of sidewalk and curb, and any damages are the responsibility of the contractor. So it's documenting those at the pre-con to make the site conditions are the same.
Do we notify I mean, is that, I don't, is there homes that right close to it? 'Cause do we notify those people that this work's gonna be done then?
Yeah, as one of our next steps, once we kind of get the pre-construction meeting established, we've had a kickoff meeting with Outreach. We're going to have postcards go out to local residents ahead of time. We're going to have flyers that are also going to go be put in signs on site, and then we're going to do some reaching out to some of the legislatures and maybe some of our MPRB partners, since this pond is the upstream pond for Clean Water Partnership projects, including Cedar Meadows and downstream.
All right, so we're staying connected with a lot of people.
Yep. Yeah, and the city wants to be involved in those things,
Yeah.
so we've been talking with our
City
partners
too.
at the
All right.
city
Thank
too.
you. Thanks.
Yep.
Question. What happens to the contaminated material and how is it taken care of?
Since the material is contaminated, it is contaminated to a degree where it does need to be landfilled. So it would be taken to the contractor's selection of a landfill, and then, put in the landfill, encapsulated in there.
Hmm.
The
So
contamination
it's
on this,
not- Yeah, so it's not cleaned up. It's just dumped into some place.
yeah.
Okay. Are there protections to make sure that contamination is contained, so that when it's picked up and it's transported and so on, are there standard processes for that? So there aren't spills and, that kind of stuff.
Nick might be able to speak to this a little bit more, but it will follow standard erosion control, which controls sediment movement, which will help contain those contaminated sediments. Another part of that is going to be part of the process of doing these ponds in the winter, is so those sediments aren't, drying out and moving around. They're going to be frozen.
It's going to be frozen.
and,
Okay.
yeah, they're going to be frozen material, so it's much easier to move around, much
Okay.
more clumped.
All right. Okay.
Contamination, it sounds like, we're used to Riley tar and stuff like that. This is just residential salt and sand from the street and stuff. There is no industrial waste or anything.
It's not industrial rate. The contaminant from the soil samples that were taken back in 2023, the contaminant that put it need to be landfilled was Diesel Range Organics. So it's spilled fuel, things like that. This catch basin has a almost 1,400 acre drainage area. So it's just got a really large amount of roads and houses and all that kind of stuff that comes into it.
There was a question related to weather. We didn't do this last year because of weather being too mild. Are we risking that same scenario this year if the weather's warm?
Over the last couple of winters, I think that's always going to be kind of a risk. I do think that this work is best done in the winter, just in the ability to both remove the water and keep it out, and for the movement of sediments and things like that. On kind of knock on wood, the NOAA did just say that we are projected to have a cooler than an average winter. Though that might be volatile. with some of the changes with the La Nina. We're kind of seeing, though it's kind of cool today, we are seeing kind of a warm fall. So there's not really any good way to know that.
Right.
Can't you guarantee it?
No. If I find a way to do that, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, one of the things as we move the program forward for stormwater dredging is going to be exploring and putting in alternative options of, summer dredging and things like that. Kind of the goal here is just this work has kind of been hanging out there and we want to move it forward and kind of get it done. This winter, we do still live in Minnesota. It usually freezes enough this is a pretty short duration, about 3 weeks-ish. So we should have a cold enough snap where we can get in there, and it's a pretty small pond, so that helps.
Yeah, Manager Olson, we have the favorable opportunity of bidding this early enough that as things freeze, we can have that contractor get in and do that at that first opportunity.
Mhm.
Even that warm year, we had experience with contractors that were able to get the 1 week of cold weather, they were able to.
Great.
So there will be.
We're optimistic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. We ready to vote? Manager Maxwell.
Yes.
Olson says aye. Miller.
Aye.
Hidjmati.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, Resolution 25-062, authorization to release the RFP for engineering services. Baker Sanis.
Evening, board managers. Every 2 years, watershed districts in the state of Minnesota are required to solicit interest through an open request for proposals process for engineering services to serve as district engineer. The district's current consulting contract with Stantec expires on December 31st, 2025. Updating the RFP was a collaborative effort to reflect the wide range of services the district engineer provides, from technical analysis to strategic and relationship-based support that advances MCWD's mission. The RFP outlines the services required to meet the district's engineering and partnership needs, and the scope of services are organized into 4 categories. First, general engineering services on retainer, which includes supporting the board and staff with technical guidance, participation in meetings, and strategic input on watershed planning, capital project implementation, and policy development. The second is permit support, which serves as one of the district's most significant outreach and relationship channels. The district engineer plays a key role in ensuring that this program is efficient, responsive, and builds MCWD's reputation as a collaborative and solution-oriented partner. Third, Grays Bay Dam operations and maintenance, which requires situational awareness of weekly water levels, guiding operational recommendations, and then fulfilling a role as a member of the flood response team. And fourth and finally is additional services, which may include technical support for research and monitoring, capital project planning, maintenance, and land and partnership opportunities. All of these ensuring that the district engineer is integrated across programs and can provide continuity, strategic advice, and technical rigor throughout MCWD's operations. The tentative timeline that we anticipate is releasing the RFP by October 31st, with proposals due on December 12th. And based on tonight's discussion and final review, there may be some non-substantive edits in advance of its release and distribution. But following district policy, the RFP will be posted on the district's website, the League of Minnesota Cities website, and distributed through district contacts and partner networks. As part of the selection process, MCWD will hold informational meetings for interested firms in mid-November to introduce the district's mission, expectations, and approach to partnership. The selection committee, comprised of the administrator, selects staff across multiple departments, and if there's an interest, at least one board manager will review proposals and may conduct informational interviews. The evaluations of firms will focus on the firm's understanding of MCWD's mission, their approach to relationship building, and the proposed chief engineer's ability to provide strategic insight and responsive day-to-day service. So with that, staff are seeking authorization to release the RFP for engineering services, and we can open the floor to any questions.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Manager Miller. Second. Second from Manager Maxwell.
I move to amend that the president designate herself or somebody else to serve as
Board liaison.
Okay.
Usually when we send this out, how many requests for proposals do we receive?
That is a good question. I haven't been here long enough to know the answer.
Okay.
James, would you like to answer?
Responding to Arun on something. What was the
I
question?
was just kind of wondering how many requests for proposals do we receive? after
How
we
many
send them out?
proposals do we receive?
Yeah.
It depends on the year. I haven't been involved in the process every year of my 20 years, but usually less than a handful.
Yeah. So there's more than one, that's really.
There's usually more than one. I think the watershed district was with Hickok and Associates and then Wank, and had built longstanding relationships with its chief engineer, Mike Panzer, over time, and subsequently Chris Meehan. And so when Stantec was acquired a Wank, they ended up continuing to be positioned very competitively in the marketplace. And I think Manager Loftus has brought this up before, is that might have stifled competitive interest over time. I mean, we've done a lot of door knocking and tried to encourage the process to be competitive. So we'll see what we get.
Question.
Manager Jmati.
We're going to be walking into the 2027 10-year plan, both in terms of planning and execution. Does the RFP include what we think we're going to need? We're taking a particular direction with climate change and, addressing climate and so on. Have we included those, what we think those requirements will be in the RFP?
Manager Hejmati, if you can provide a more specific example, I can provide a more specific answer. But what I'd say is yes.
Okay.
Within the RFP, there's discussion of involvement by the district engineer as a firm and the chief engineer in the development of the watershed management plan, the implementation and constant evaluation of the watershed management plan. That's one of the roles of the district and chief engineer, always has been. That said, you might recall that at a recent meeting, the board authorized distribution of a separate request for proposals for engineering, engagement, and planning services for the 2027 watershed management plan. So while whoever we select as the district engineer will be involved and play a role, there's going to be a discrete and separate contract for the development of the plan as an actual project with a beginning and middle and an end. So I think
Okay.
the RFP covers it, but if you read it or you think that there's a way to be more specific, or right now you've got a stronger vision for what you're looking for in terms of the district engineer's involvement in that separate project, we can be sure to include it.
No, I just needed to know how you were approaching that, and I think your answer is sufficient for me.
A question for Louis. Do we need to vote on the amendment, or can we have that as a friendly amendment?
If the maker of the motion and the seconder agree that it can be raised without separate vote, incorporated by mutual consent.
I'm prepared to be mutual.
I am.
Okay. We'll be mutual.
I'm going to vote for my own amendment.
With that, we'll do a vote. on Resolution 062. Maxwell.
Here, or aye.
Olson says aye. Miller.
Aye.
Hijmati.
Aye.
Motion carries. Great job, thank you. All right, since I'm not going to say that I have any board issues. Is anybody else with a board issue?
Well, I got them, but I'm not going to
Bring 'em up.
tonight, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be better with everybody
Yeah.
here. Okay,
Save them up.
Yeah,
put the whole.
Write them
stack.
down, though.
yeah. Good point.
Next, we're going to have a administrator's report with Mr. Whisker.
Thank you, Chair Olson. Managers, on the issues, inquiries, and ideas, we do maintain a list. When we've answered those, we cross them off. So I think at some point in the near future, I'll maybe closer to the end of the year, timed strategically ahead of my annual review, I'll make sure you see the list and know that we addressed every single one of the raised up. But we'll start with quick water level report, and I'll keep it short and sweet. The Lake Minnetonka is sitting right where it's supposed to be, 928.56. Good run out elevation is right there, 928.6 for the year. And water levels have been drawing down in Minnehaha Creek, just under 30 cubic feet per second, and continuing to drop down at Hiawatha Avenue. So we're really just waiting to see what the weather brings us. If we get a warm snap, if there's some rain, we've got some flexibility, but hopefully, like Manager Olson said, we're tracking towards cooler temps. And as ice starts to be on the horizon, then we're coordinating with Minnetonka Public Works to get the dam closed for the winter with the stop lugs in and the gates up. And James will be coordinating some routine maintenance with Public Works this year to get the rubber seals on all the stop logs replaced and updated. I think Manager Miller brought up, I think it was an inquiry, not an idea or an issue at the last meeting, about volunteer willows at 6 Mile Marsh Prairie and Japs Olson Stormwater Management Facility. James has been out and inspected both. At 6 Mile, I think what we're seeing is relatively normal growth. I mean, you get volunteer species. Willows love the edge of water, and so we're getting really more than anything, it's an aesthetic issue out there. It's not impacting storage or function and value of the wetlands. But that said, 6 Mile Marsh Prairie's scheduled for a prescribed burn in 2026 as part of our 2-year vegetation management contract. And James will work with the team that is going to be doing that work, and the burns will run all the way up to the wetland, and that's a natural control for overgrowth of volunteer woodies like willow. Out at the Japs Olson Stormwater Facility, I think we do want to make sure that we're staying more on top of those, so those will be cut and treated. That's an active stormwater management facility that's filtering water. I don't think we're worried about stormwater capacity or filtration, but that facility's got proximity to groundwater. There's contamination in the area and a liner, so we want to talk to James about that, staying on top of the willow growth there. So that helps close the loop on your
Until, well, we'll close the loop when the trees are cut.
right. Okay.
Okay.
I'll cross it off the list after we deal
Right.
with it. Couple Minneapolis updates. I met with Commissioner Musich. Actually was kind enough to make a connection for me with the new executive director for the Minneapolis Parks Foundation, Martin Weira. We had a really great chat about his history in the nonprofit sector and what brought him to the Minneapolis Park Foundation and their mission, their campaign for fundraising. And one of the things that's interesting is they're, I think, strategically looking into the future. He'd mentioned the Parks Foundation often has fundraising campaigns around really large-scale parks initiatives, like their Riverfront program. And they're interested in sort of more mid-tier projects to maintain and sustain campaign fundraising, and are really curious about our program of partnership with the City of Minneapolis and the Park and Recreation Board for Cedar Avenue stormwater projects up and down the Parkway, as well as Cedar Lake. So feeling like there's some aligned interest there, and maybe there'll be a collaborator and funder as that project gets through design and towards bid in 2026. And that's probably my next update. We met with the Minneapolis team internally today after the steering committee meeting that we had earlier this year. We've been finalizing the feasibility study with Stantec, integrating some later feedback that we get from the city of Minneapolis for the Cedar Avenue project around nearby sanitary lines. There's a sanitary line that runs through the area, a really old one, clay pipe, that runs through the location of the stormwater facility, as well as a combined sewer overflow that they want to address. So there's a couple of associated utilities that have been televising and want to work into the actual design. So feasibility is getting finished, and Gabe and Rachel are working respectively on the request for proposals for design services and then a draft cooperative agreement. And those are going to get circulated to the partnership leadership team and the technical team early in November. And we're working with Michael Schroeder and Angie Kraft to see if those will make their way through City Council, Park Board before the end of this year, so that we can then get the RFP out on the street and move into design 2026. Quick update on where we are with Minneapolis. My update. I'll take any questions that you have.
I think we're good. Okay. As a reminder, next month, we are meeting on the first and third week of the month. So our next meeting is November 6th, followed by November 12th, advisory committee meeting, and then on the November 20th for the second meeting. So there is a shift of 1 week to avoid the issues with holidays scheduling. With that, if there's no other information, I will close the meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.